So as Professor Ong and his colleagues conclude, we are now a nation, unfortunately again, split into camps and echo chambers. Segments of society exist with their own facts, their own experts, their own narrative of Philippine history and society. So parang, if you can imagine, parang may multiverse na tayo. Hindi na tayo, hindi na tayo isang universe na lang. Pero may multiverse na ang set of facts, truths, history, beliefs ng isa is different from the other. And at the end of it all, an alternate reality is created. One which seems impenetrable and impervious to logic, where those who pull the strings of disinformation can do no wrong. For sure, there are certain conditions that allow the industry of disinformation and influence operations to thrive in the Philippines. And allow me to cite two important concepts connected to this. This was also discussed in the research. First is algorithmic bias. Regardless of what this algorithmic bias is, the fact is that it exists and that it has been gamed by actors to serve political ends. So yung number two is what is called net neutrality. Ano ba yung net neutrality? This is the second concept that is being discussed. Ito yung the idea that all data that traverses the internet should be treated the same. After all, they are just packets of zeros and ones. Enforcing net neutrality means that service providers should ensure that so long as you are connected to the internet, everything should be accessible for the same cost, at the same speed. So free access to social media can seem like a good deal, di ba? Okay na free data yung Facebook. Until one realizes that since Facebook is free, and news sites like Google, siguro INQUIRER or Philippine Star, and all the other mainstream media outlets, they're not available on free data. Then regulators have handed over a near monopoly on the flow of information to these platforms. Platforms that have algorithmic bias and can be gamed. This process ultimately crowds out legitimate media from the communication space. Napansin niyo naman, di ba? Yung influence ng legitimate media ngayon, hindi na kasing pareho nun dati. It grants the influencers and trolls, whose loyalties lie with the highest bidder, the same, if not more, a latency than traditional sources of information. So trained journalists who subscribe to a certain code of ethics in their practice. Volume becomes the name of the game, rather than truth or reliability. Diba? Mas importante na ngayon yung virality kesa sa truth, which should not be the case at all. And while net neutrality was cast aside without much resistance here in the Philippines, the debate is much more intense elsewhere in the world. So while more work remains on the horizon, the outcome, even when narrow, holds promise that the tide can be turned. When actions are rooted on promoting transparency and accountability in government and social platforms. If the grand strategy of disinformation actors is to stop us from talking to each other as citizens of goodwill, then the goal of the counter-disinformation agent must be to have people talk to each other again. As I said, fact-checking is necessary but inadequate. Instead of engaging in hyper-politicized debates about individual issues, lies, and myths, we must pull back and situate each lie within the bigger process of disinformation. We must expose, so to speak, how the sausage is made and talk about who is benefiting from this information. Who is benefiting from every story, every lie that is being said, and what is the agenda, what are the motivations. rather than get bogged down engaging in online combat with each troll we find, we must focus our energies upstream on holding the architects of disinformation accountable.